Okay, so I'm going to describe the plot of the movie Adaptation, which is based loosely on a book by Susan Orlean, who writes for the New York Times about orchids. And this movie features that book and is about a screenwriter called Charlie Kaufman trying to write an adaptation of that movie into a screenplay. And he also has a twin brother. Both characters are played by Nicolas Cage, which is really hilarious. He does such an amazing job in that, which is also funny because I don't think of him as like the most amazing actor, but he's really funny and good. The writing's so good. And the person who actually did write the screenplay is also called Charlie Kaufman. So there's one layer of meta happening. So he writes in the movie, Charlie Kaufman is writing a screenplay loosely based on this novel or it's not a novel, it's a book by Susan Orlean. So the book that Susan Orlean wrote is about finding out about this huge subculture of people who love orchids. There's like a long history of people who are really invested in orchids and all the different kinds of orchids and collecting them and other bromeliads and stuff that grow in swamps. And she discovers this whole world through an article that she reads about a guy who goes to this natural preserve in Florida with members of a tribe, members of a tribe who live in Florida. I used to know the name of the actual group of indigenous people from this area of Florida, but I can't remember it now. Anyway, the reason he goes with them is because they can't be prosecuted for taking very rare plants from this preserve because of some kind of treaty right. And he uses them to basically try and get this extremely rare orchid in order to, I guess, propagate it. So she meets up with him after she reads the story about this, and she goes to she sort of learns all about his life and becomes kind of strangely close with him. He's a very odd, very smart, but also very unstable kind of person. And then in the movie, as he's writing, as Charlie Kaufman, his character is trying to write the screenplay and feeling he's a particularly extremely self-deprecating character. He has a twin brother, right, that I mentioned, also played by Nicolas Cage, and his twin brother who looks exactly like him. They're both like old, sort of like middle-aged, balding, pretty unattractive people who, and the character, Charlie Kaufman's character, is really self-deprecating and feels really, even though he's a well-known writer and screenplay writer, he doesn't feel very confident, and he's in love with this girl, but he can't really like make a move on her because he's so awkward. Meanwhile, his twin brother, who's living with him while he gets back on his feet or whatever, decides also to start writing screenplays. And his twin brother is like this kind of doofy, kind of overconfident, but pretty not very successful guy who just has a unceasingly sunny outlook on life and is way overconfident, even though he's not particularly skilled at anything. Starts taking this like master class with a screenplay writer master who has all these rules about screenplays, and starts writing like a very Hollywood kind of thriller screenplay that Charlie Kaufman's character is totally disgusted and annoyed by. And meanwhile, he's trying to do this crazy, complicated, very meta screenplay adaptation of this book where he wants to write about Susan Orlean, but then he's changing the story also, and then her story as he's writing it is also part of the movie, and he, instead of the actual ending of the novel, he totally rewrites the novel and has Susan Orlean end up in a relationship with the orchid thief, the guy who stole the orchids. Told you he was mentally unstable. In his rewrite of the story, she finds out that he's actually taking these orchids and using that same group of native guys who all know about a secret way to turn these orchids like an active ingredient in these orchids into some kind of psychedelic drug. And then she finds out about this whole operation and then starts taking the drug and then falls in love with him and becomes really addicted to it. And there's this whole like crazy subplot happening. And this is, like I said, in the adaptation he's writing, and then he interacts with the adaptation that he's writing. He and his brother go to Florida and end up in this like crazy car chase because what happens? Oh, I think they're holding somebody. They go to spy on him and see what's going on, and then he is and prove that Susan Orlean is like involved in this crazy underground drug thing, and then they see him spying on them, and then they chase him into the swamp, and then he and his brother are like running through the swamp, and even though it's like disgusting and scary, and they have a gun, and they're like definitely trying to kill these two guys, the screenwriters, the twins. His brother is like hilariously oblivious to the fact that they're in like really real danger and keeps like trying to look on the bright side of things. Anyway, in the end, something really sad happens. Several really sad things happen in a crazy twist. And then there's a really well acted like denouement scene. And then he ends up asking that girl out and finishing the screenplay.